Hello, my name is Galena. I'm the fiance of Joshua Lee McCollister, who was murdered on July 8th by Deunn Willis and robbed by Danielle Durand. So there was a pretty upsetting incident a couple nights ago with my little boy, my 9-year-old. He was having an autism meltdown. They can be pretty epic. A lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, he gets worked up to the point where he can't bring himself down. And he screamed during this meltdown that he hopes Uncle Josh goes to hell. I've never heard him say something like that about anybody. And it gradually came out as the meltdown progressed that the reason that he wanted Uncle Josh to go to hell was because Uncle Josh wanted to kill his daddy. This was really difficult, really upsetting, and I tried to talk to my little boy about it. I reminded him that Uncle Josh never killed anybody, and Josh has been dead now over 2 months. And I kind of get why this is being said, because, these people never backed down, even after Josh died. There's been no apology for anything that they did at all, and that includes telling my little boy that Josh murdered his cousin back in the 1970s. They have not tried to make any of it right. Even me saying, Josh was born in 1988, Daniel Murray was killed in the 1970s, my little boy just can't get it because he's disabled. My little boy was taken care of by Josh for almost 1.5 years. The majority of the pictures I have of Josh are actually of him playing with my 9-year-old. He loved him. He loved him very much. And my little boy loved Uncle Josh. Uncle Josh was the guy who made him the best dino nuggets, or would get him donuts, or get him on and off the school bus. I remember it wasn't long before Josh left Fort Bragg, my little boy, from all this trauma, he stopped eating at school. So Josh went to Safeway and he just loaded up on every conceivable junk food that he knew that my little boy couldn't resist. A whole thing of donuts from the half-off section. He took it to the school and he said, "Here's all this stuff. Make sure my little boy eats." Josh loved him so much. And I don't know if my little boy ever really internalized that, because, see, from the day Josh moved in, he was thick as thieves with my oldest. See, Josh was nonverbal at some point in his childhood, and he saw my oldest is still nonverbal, and his heart just went out to him so much. He spent so much time focused on my oldest son. He always helped tuck him in at night. He just loved him so much. And because he focused so much on the oldest, I think that my middle one kind of felt comparatively left out. But Josh did love him. We never got to have that sit-down talk about Mommy and Uncle Josh being engaged, because the stalking was so bad. We were scared of people knowing we were engaged. Only a few people did. And what we would have said is some little boys have a mommy and a daddy, and some of them are so lucky that they have a stepdaddy. Some of them are so lucky they also have a stepmommy, because as far as we knew, my ex was actually engaged during this point, and we really wanted to present it as though these kids were just so lucky that they were going to have 4 parents, not 2, 4, all of whom loved them so much. That's what we would have said. We didn't have a talk about the stalking with my middle one. We just, when things would come up, things my little boy would say that he'd heard, I'd tell him, this is grown-up stuff. You don't need to know about it. Why don't you go play? And I don't know if that was the right tactic to use in the long run. I could tell that the stuff that the instigator was saying to my little boy was making him angrier and angrier and angrier. And he was becoming increasingly aggressive whenever he would see Josh. Josh would just, he'd put his hands up like this when my middle one was angry and say, okay, I want you to hit it hard as you can. And my middle one, he'd punch it, and Josh would say, oh, that's good job, buddy. You know, do it again, do it again. And my little boy would get some of his growing aggression out that way, and Josh would just praise him and praise him and praise him, tell him how good he was doing. Josh was really worried how this was all impacting him. Really worried. You know, Josh never told the kids to call him dad, never, not one time. Because he understood that the kids had a dad, and he respected that. As much as that deserved to be respected, he respected it. And he was totally fine with being called Uncle Josh. He knew custody was going to be tricky, but Josh was only a few days from leaving Humboldt County. That's one of the things that kills me. I've heard from several people that he was just a few days away from leaving, because his goal and my goal was not Humboldt County by that point. We'd realized it was not where we wanted to raise the kids. He had pitched Lincoln City, Oregon. That was our new goal, because that was where Josh was from. And he talked so many times, and this is something that I want my middle one to hear someday, that because Josh was so concerned about all the trauma that this situation had been on my middle one, that he knew he needed to really buckle down and spend a lot of time with him to help him heal from that trauma. And so he used to say to me, there is this wonderful playground in Lincoln City. It's so great. You got to see pictures of it. And he had me look pictures up. And I'm going to take our middle one to that playground, because he didn't get to go to playgrounds enough. I'm going to take him there, just me and him, all the time when we get there. When custody is worked out and it's our turn to have him, I'm going to take him to that playground again and again and again. Every day if he needs it, I'm going to take him to the movie theater. I'm going to take him on all these solo father-son adventures up there, so he can heal from all this freaking damage that they're doing. It wasn't us that was trash-talking other people to my little boy. Ever. We never did that. Ever. Because it wasn't good for our son. It's bad for him. We wanted him to have a good relationship with all the adults. never heard Josh say one bad thing about any other adult to our middle child. Not one time. But that was the goal, that we'd get to Lincoln City and Josh was just going to go to town doing everything he could for this little boy to make him feel loved and supported, and giving him that extra love, that extra support that he needed. Because Josh was just so concerned about the psychological abuse that was going on. It wasn't physical, it was psychological. He saw things that I had taped of my middle one, and he was horrified by the psychological abuse that those tapes showed, what my little boy was being put through. And so he was just so determined he was going to do right by him. Because Josh never considered these kids anything but his. Even if he was Uncle Josh to them, he didn't care. That was why I always said he'd take a bullet for these kids, because he would have. He'd have done anything for them. I know when I saw my little boy screaming that he hopes Uncle Josh goes to hell, if Josh were watching, the message that he would have wanted me to convey would be, "Hey buddy, I love you." That's the only thing that Josh would have responded in that instance. And he would have said it again and again, "Hey buddy, I love you." That's all. That's it. The first dream I had about Josh after he died, we were sitting in chairs facing each other on a porch, and like, I don't know if it was supposed to be a fancy restaurant or something, but nobody else was there. It was just the two of us on this porch. And he was dressed all in black. Tight black t-shirt, black pants with a bunch of pockets, and one of those Irish caps that he loved to wear. And he told me that he was going to wear black for a year in solidarity with me. He told me that when I get to the other side, I can still write books, but I don't ever have to write true crime again. I can just write the books that I would want to write. Something else. But those are the two things that really stood out to me. In the background, there was a town on the ocean. Not Fort Bragg. I described it, what it looked like, to his mom. And she said it sounded like Lincoln City. And it was it was like this was this comforting thought for the two of us, that that's where Josh is right now. He's in some celestial version of Lincoln City. He's still sitting there waiting for his family. And it's beautiful, and it's good where he's waiting, but he's just... That's why he was in Humboldt County in the first place. Getting away from the violence in Mendocino County, getting away from the stalking, but trying desperately to find a safe place for his family. He went on ahead to make sure that it was safe. Safe for his future wife and safe for his children. Because that was the type of man he was. He believed that if there's danger, the man is supposed to go first to make sure. his wife and little ones are going to be safe, and that's why he was there, and that's why he was leaving in a couple of days. If Deunn Willis and Danielle Durand hadn't killed him, he was leaving because he decided it was not safe for us, and that the best place for his wife and his babies to be was Lincoln City, Oregon. Because that was a smaller town and he was familiar with it. He had people he knew up there. It would have been safer. It's a nice thought. A very different version, granted. That's where he finally managed to get to after he was murdered. And that's where he's waiting. But while he waits, that's the message I know he would want passed on to his son. No matter what they told him, it's not true. Josh always loved those kids. Everything he did was because he loved those kids.